Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Young and Hungry podcast. I'm here with my co-host Dana, who is also joined by our lovely guests, the biggest, baddest, best promoters in the Atlantic provinces in Canada, Heather and Ti-Jean Leblanc. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah, we're raring to go. So
3 shows in a row.
yeah.
Yeah. Been a long time coming. Had a lot of time to prepare for these ones. Had some learning experiences in between. So how are you guys feeling, like, mentally and emotionally now to finally see that some shows are actually about to go ahead and you guys are going to get to do what you love and what you've been talking about for the last since 2019?
Well, it's exciting to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Weekly or even daily here, we're getting good news or better news every day. And we're hoping that, it'll keep going that way. And who knows, we might be in green before the show or slightly after the show. But everything's a go on our end. As long as our athletes can get here and the bubble's going to be open soon, everything's great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So, are you guys getting a lot of people signing up from the shows from like New Brunswick, or is it kind of like from all over? You're getting them from Newfoundland, PEI, Nova Scotia?
Well, like when we started with all of the restrictions and everything, we had made it clear that only the Atlantic provinces could compete because at that time we were only suspecting that the Atlantic bubble would be open in time for the shows. However, they just made an announcement here in New Brunswick this week. I don't know if you heard, but apparently that New Brunswick has opened up to the rest of the country as long as they have their first vaccination. So I'm not sure if we'll see some new and fresh faces from Quebec or Ontario or not. I know I have gotten a lot of inquiries about the shows because there's a lot of people that's in great shape that just want to compete. So we'll see. I mean, time will tell. And we got 3 events back to back. So, hopefully we'll get a few fresh faces and have a very successful show. So.
Yeah, definitely. Very exciting. So that's what's coming up like right now. But just for people who like don't know exactly who you guys are and stuff, like I just kind of want to do like very quick background about, kind of how you guys like really got into promoting. Don't want to spend too much time on it, just like kind of really quickly go over it. So I know that originally like you guys were both athletes. I'm not sure if a lot of people know that you guys aren't just like business people trying to make money off bodybuilding, that you actually, got into the sport like most of us do. We're athletes yourselves. Ti-Jean is an IFBB pro. So like, at what capacity did you guys compete? Like how long did you guys compete for? And also, how did you bridge the gap from being a competitor and going into a promoter role? And how long did that take? Was there like a big gap there, or was it like from athlete to promoter?
Actually, in my case, I started competing in 74, from 74 to 94. And we weren't promoting then. Everybody knows that. What happened is in 2007, we were approached, or prior to that in 2006, if we wanted to promote the Atlantics in 2007, because Len Collette, who was holding the show here in Moncton, was retiring from being a promoter, and we thought that we'd give it a go. So we thought, hey, it's a new challenge. And at that time, I wasn't competing anymore, and I was judging, and I wanted the challenge. So I thought, hey, I've never done this before, but I'm going to give it a go. And then we just started from 0, and then we built it up from 0 to 10.
Yeah, we started out, I think, with like 50 competitors at the Atlantics or less in 2007. And we started at a high school promoting.
Matthew Martin.
Yeah, and we stayed there for about 5 years, and then we took the leap to the Casino New Brunswick in 2013, and I think that we had our most athletes we ever had. It must have been up around 130, 140 athletes, and then it just kept growing from there. So 2016, we had 270 athletes compete in 2016 at the first Gladiator Showdown, and we sold out the show with over 1,500 fans. So we've done very well up until that point, but then we kind of took a little bit of a, I guess, how would you put
Detour.
it? Yeah, not a detour.
I think in the fitness industry, it's like anything else. It's like the stock market. It goes up and it goes down. 2016 was our best year. And after that, it looked like there was a decline in participants, a decline in the audience. but that was all across Canada.
Mhm.
And with the changeover from the CBBF to the CPA, that didn't help either. So I think those things are starting to build up again. And I think that 2022 will be a great year across Canada for the CPA events.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely seems like it's leading into that, right?
And I'll just add one more thing real quick so you can move on. But we've always tried to raise the bar every show, every year. So basically, Flex Lewis approached us in 2016 and said, or actually prior to that, 2015, and said, let's do a show together. You guys, seem to really know exactly how to promote a show that I want to see on stage, and I'd love to branch out into Canada. So we did our first show with Flex Lewis in 2017, and we've been doing a show with him ever since. And we're planning on doing the fourth one here in November 6th, I think, or even October, we're not sure. But
yeah, we might change it. We're not sure. I'd like to just make a note that the reason that we are somewhat successful is because we have a lot of support from our sponsors here. We've had sponsors that have been sponsoring our show since day one, and they're still on board. And we really appreciate their sponsorship, because without sponsorship, it's hard to put on a real good show. It's hard to put on a show that has all the frills, like the Las Vegas lifestyle show. We took our show and tried to make it an event, and that's basically what we want to do. We're doing that for the athletes, because a lot of times athletes compete in the show where you have minimal staging and when you have minimal time on stage. We try to have a great stage appearance. We hire extra techs, and we like to give our athletes as much time on stage as possible. We don't rush them through. We like to give them their 15 minutes of fame on stage, because we want them to come back to our shows. So it's a marketing strategy that we use, and it's working well.
And we spare no expense, right?
Absolutely not.
So,
Yeah, so that kind of leads me to my next question, which would be kind of like, what are the biggest challenges you face when it comes to promoting the show, from from day one preparing to put the show off to the day that the show actually comes? Is that acquiring sponsors and making sure that you're financially set? Is that making sure that the athletes are satisfied? Because I know you say you have to you want to keep the athletes happy because you want the athletes coming back. But I mean, like you said, you're also putting off a show, and you have an audience of people that want to come and be impressed. And if you're not a bodybuilding fan, it's going to take more to impress you than just bodybuilders on stage flexing their muscles. I was a part of the 2018 Gladiator, and that was a production. And even if you weren't a bodybuilding fan, you were going to be captivated by that show. So do you find it challenging to kind of balance all these things and take care of the athletes but still put off a show? Or what is the biggest challenge to you guys when it comes to promoting?
I think our biggest challenge is to finding the right venue for the event that we're going to hold. For example, the Capitol Theater is a Gothic looking theater, so it's perfect for the Gladiator event. It doesn't hold as many seats as the casinos, but that's okay. Yeah. It's just, we want to create that ambiance. We want to create that illusion that we're in medieval times. Yes. That's something that we do. Another thing is to make sure that our sponsors are happy with their sponsorship. We want to make sure we market them well. We try to get more people sitting in our seats, which, like you said, it's not everybody that wants to sit and watch a bodybuilding show. So we try to make it a little bit more eventful. Yeah. And we're still working on that. And then there's the production behind everything. We got to make sure that our staff know what they're doing. And that's why you see the familiar faces year in and year out, is we try to maintain the same staff because they know what they're doing. Yeah. So that can be a challenge as well. And we try to bear no expenses, but at the same time, if we fall in the red all the time, we won't be able to put on a show. Okay. So we're trying to stay in the black as well.
Yeah, I think it's a teamwork approach. And I guess that's the biggest challenge for us, is that we have to make sure everybody is on board. Everybody's on the same page, and we're talking athletes. We need athletes to compete. If we don't have the athletes to compete, then we can't put on a good show. We need fans, because fans go and watch the athletes. So if the athlete attendance is down, then the fan attendance is down. We also need to have sponsors that's going to help us financially to put on these huge productions and make them great, and show the athletes that this is what it's all about. You know, this is our passion, and we want to make sure that, that everyone's having fun and having a good time, because this is what it's all about: fun, enjoying the experience on stage, and you know, just reaping the benefits. And our biggest challenge is, you know, for us personally, is you know, right now in the COVID world is, you know, because of the reduced capacity in the venue. So I would have to say right now that's our biggest challenge, is that we can't sell enough tickets for people to watch the shows. So we've opened up to the streaming of the shows, which will kind of compensate for what we lost with the reduced capacity due to COVID restrictions. So fingers crossed, we're hoping by the natural show, July 24th, we might be at full capacity by then, because
Yeah.
we're kind of like a little bit ahead of the game in New Brunswick. So fingers crossed that happens. And yeah, so good news on all fronts. Yeah, physically, not enough tickets for the shows, but you know, the positive part is that we can, you know, replace that with the streaming. So.
But
One quick question. With the live stream, like once your shows get back to full capacity, and even say 2022, when like you know you're gonna have a big surge of competitors, is the live stream something that you guys intend to keep on going? Like, you know, because that's kind of like how the times are changing. You're seeing that on the professional circuit, because it's allowing bodybuilding fans from all over the world to watch these pro shows as well. Like, is that something you guys would consider investing in like continuously?
I think it is now, eh? Like at one point, Jean was kind of a little bit not against it, but I think he had reservations on that, and maybe he can explain why. But I think that moving forward, it's probably going to be an asset, not a liability. So,
Well, the stream for us is like we're still in our rookie year with the stream.
yeah,
I think that understanding it and what it can do for us
yeah,
is going to be the main reason that we're going to probably keep bringing back the stream. I think it's a financial good investment, and also not just financially, but like you said, a lot of people that can't make the show that are probably living elsewhere, even across Canada or anywhere else, that want to see a production like that. They'll have the opportunity to see it.
yeah. And you know, this year we're kind of trying to find ways to make the stream, I guess, important and an asset and a benefit. So we're even looking at trying to get
Different stuff.
different
going on.
people involved in the stream, so that it's exciting. People will buy the stream just because, you know, that's another thing in the future. We probably would love to have a big sponsor the stream, because then they get to put all of their stuff on it, advertise their company, and pay for it. So that's what we're looking for in the future.
yeah, and like another thing is too, for everybody watching, is the stream, especially right now, like we've been mentioning about COVID and all that stuff. It's a way for, you know, like if everybody's at home and, you know, your friends are competing from here, or your family and stuff, like you can get together with friends based on the restrictions, of course, and watch the show. Or like, I know I've been in a situation where I've had it on my phone for streaming a show, and you know, you're going somewheres and you can pull it up and watch the classes. And
Yeah.
it's a really good asset for especially taking the tension off of the stuff right now, because like they said, there's only so many seats, and you know.
And Morgan,
Absolutely.
your province, Morgan, would be even bigger benefit, because everyone's so far away from each other. All the cities are so far from one another, and it's hard to get to St. John's to watch a show. So it's going to be a real benefit for Newfoundland.
Well, yeah, I think it's like a win-win for everybody, right? Because even like Ti-Jean said, like, you know, you get people that from BC might tune in to see the live stream for the Gladiator and see the production you guys put off, and they're like, oh wow, this is better than any show we get out here. And then, you know, it's just like advertising essentially. And then obviously the benefits of like everybody that wants to see their family members or friends compete has the opportunity too. So it's just like just an exposure thing, right?
We're even going to send the streaming link to Flex, and maybe he'll tune in and watch our show. You know, it's always good to have these people tuning in.
Yeah,
like
and then
across...
they can give feedback and stuff too.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
But the other thing is too, like, I mean, Morgan and I, we've grown up on your guys' productions, like in our competing years. Like, we're a testament to, we've competed at your shows mostly. And I mean, for any of the new competitors out there or the returning ones, like everybody knows the value of a good show, because we're all putting in the same amount of effort. Like, it's disappointing when you go through a whole prep and you go to a show, because I mean, I've been at one, and you get there and you're like, this is a joke. Like, I literally walked in, like nobody cared. Like, here's your number. They call you out on stage. It's so.
But I've gotten trophies that had like the wrong like class and everything. they're just like just giving you
Well-
something just to take a picture, and then it's like bikini class B, and you're like, what? Like,
Or,
like,
you know,
in a different year at that.
It's well worth
Right.
the experience, because a lot of people, there's talks about pro cards, there's talks about doing this and changing this class, but for a lot of people it's an experience. It's something that maybe right now, especially the pandemic, they want to do something productive. So to be able to go to a show and feel like you're taken care of, and it's a positive, because not everyone's going to be happy at the placings. But when you go to a show and you're like, I had so much fun, like I got last, but
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like, even because there's a lot of shows you don't place in the top call out, you don't even go on stage.
It makes all the difference, because like you said, like, I mean, obviously there's very limited winners at a show, but it's still like, even for the people that get last, it's still 12 or 16 weeks of dieting. There's a lot leading up to it. There's a lot building up to it. I mean, you think about it every day for weeks on end. So, I mean, if you don't go there and do as well as maybe you expected, just knowing that it's just a good production. There's some like gift bags there for you to be felt like you matter, and that your efforts were still appreciated to get to that point that you got to, which is probably a major personal goal for someone that they reached. It still makes a big difference, and that's going to leave a good taste in people's mouths, and then they can share their experience, like, with other people who are thinking about competing and things like that, right?
I honestly believe that the reason that the advantage that we have as promoters is that we were both competitors before. So we know what it feels like to be on stage, and we know what it feels like to be on a stage that appreciates your presence. And that's what we try to do. We try to do a couple of things. We try to make that experience a great experience. And we want to make it so they'll want to come back a second and third and fourth time. Because sometimes you can love something to death, but if you have a bad experience, it turns you off and you'll never compete again. And sometimes you compete and yeah, you did come last or second last, but you had such a great experience that you're looking forward to the next one so you can better yourself. And I think the reason that we offer this is only because we were once athletes and we know how it feels. That's basically
and that's a big reason why I wanted to mention that at the beginning of the podcast, just so people would understand that. And that kind of leads me to my next question for you guys, which is just that, like, I don't think a lot of people realize like how long you guys have really been involved in bodybuilding and your experience with it. So like, what do you guys think that are some misconceptions athletes have about promoters? Because I know you guys are like always talking to athletes and you hear everything. And we all hear everything. And I know when I first got into it, I heard so much garbage, and you start to believe it because you don't know anything when you first come into this sport. You don't know how anything works. And, one guy that's competed a few times tells you something, you just believe it. So, and I know from being around long enough now that there are definitely a lot of misconceptions that go around about promoters and their intentions and how they do things. So is there anything you guys can think of that you might want to?
Well, I wish that more people would come forward and volunteer themselves to promote a show, because only then they would understand the work that is involved and how much money you have to put into the event in order to get back.
And time.
And time, yeah. I mean, you can ask Jean, like, I probably work 60 hours a week, and I work 40 hours in my personal Transport Canada job, and then another 20 on top of that at night for the week. So, it all adds up. And, I think that a lot of athletes have the misconception that promoters just make money off the athletes. They don't get anything back in return. And we're just walking away with all their monies. Little do they know.
You don't want to look at the expenses, trust me.
No, like, I'll just tell you, the last,
you're like,
the three events we're putting on back to back, our awards have cost us over $10,000 just for awards. At the casino, when we were at the casino, that venue cost us $12,000. So if you start adding this stuff up and you start adding the hotel accommodations for the judges, you start adding up the meals for the judges, you start adding, our technical manager that actually makes sure the show goes off without a hitch, like prompting the music, prompting the videos, prompting everything. He gets a lot of fees for that. I mean, that's just one, right? The MC, our
Right.
helpers, we pay our people. A lot of shows, there's volunteers. They don't, but we pay our people. So that works.
Yeah, I know you do.
I think the misconceptions are honest on some part, and on other parts, they don't realize there are promoters that are out there for one reason, is to make money. I mean, let's face it.
Oh, for sure.
It's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
anything else.
Yeah,
You
it's
have
a business.
partnerships that are out there to serve their clients, and there's some that are out there to sell you a car, and then you never want to see your face again. We're not like that, and I think we don't have to prove ourselves.
No.
You can see that when you see our production, when you see our staging, when you see the size of our medals, the quality of our trophies, the quality of our workers, and that shows that we're not just there for the money, because if we did, we would skimp on all those things. We would have a stage with one light, and we would have a one tech, and we would have maybe
Get a
7 or
blaster.
8 volunteers.
Get
We
a
wouldn't
blaster.
pay them, and then we would rake in all this money and keep it. But nobody works for free. So like, like the tanners and the photographers and the personal trainers, everybody's making money. And yeah, a good promoter is going to make money, because if he or she doesn't, they're in the wrong business.
Or they're not doing a good job.
You can't be in the red all the time. It just wouldn't make sense. But we don't make enough money to drive Ferraris, that's for sure. And
What about the one sitting out there in the driveway?
yeah, I borrowed that one. And I think if we calculate our hours of work and the money that we make, we're probably working for minimum wage, and we're not complaining. We're not saying anything. We don't care, because the day I don't like the sport anymore is the day I walk away. Doesn't matter if I'm making a lot of money or no money. Is the day that my passion is gone, I'm gone. And I think there are promoters out there that are just there for the money, and you can see that they don't care. Those are the promoters that their athletes are just numbers. Our athletes are persons. We have a lot of our athletes calling us, asking us advice. We even have athletes calling us and asking us if their bathing suits are okay. They're sending us their posing routine. Is this okay? They're sending us their songs. Is this song appropriate for your show? Do you think that it's appropriate for me? So if they didn't have that faith in us, if we were just there to take their money, put them on stage and get them off stage, we wouldn't be getting those phone calls. So we're very fortunate that we have that compassion and that passion for the sport. And when that leaves, like I said, I will leave with it. So I think that's one of our advantages. And yeah, there are misconceptions, and sometimes those misconceptions are true. But in this case, they're not. And I'm not just saying that because it's Heather and I. I'm just saying that because the proof is in the pudding. If you come to our show, you're going to see that it's more like an event than a show. And the only reason that it's not better, the only reason that our show is not better than the Arnold's or the Olympia is because we don't have their budget. Because if we had their budget, we would do even better. We might not have the quality and the athletes that they have because they're at the pro level, but we would have a greater show. We put as much money in our show as we possibly can without going under. That's what we do.
Right.
I can't add anything to that. That was brilliant.
It's the first time in my life that my wife can't add anything to.
I couldn't even interrupt you.
Well, I mean, now that we're at that point, speaking about, the shows and the athletes, we should probably get to the questions.
Good idea.
We kind of put out there some questions, short notice, but we're going to get to some questions that most people probably are having. And we'll see what you guys have to say, because people are always full of questions. Do you got one?
Bring them on.
Do you got one to start there, Morgan?
Let me check. I fired off a good few of mine. Just hang on one second. Well, my lead into that basically asking about the misconceptions, because I know how hard you guys work, and I've been to your shows, and the respect that people have for you, it's almost like you two have an aurora around you when you guys are like, especially, well, both of you, because you guys are just like the bosses. Everyone knows it. Like, you're making sure shit is getting done, and that's why your productions are so good, right? So I guess, and clearly you have a passion for it, because you guys do what, 4 shows a year?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, do you guys see yourselves like pushing it any further with like taking on any more shows, or are you just more so focused on enhancing the quality of your shows, or like even something like promoting a pro show down the road? Like, has that ever crossed your mind, like to kind of go even like bigger and try to take on something like that?
We're not looking at adding any more amateur shows. If we were offered a pro qualifier, we will think about it. And we're looking at doing maybe bigger and better things with Flex. We'll have to sit down with Flex and see where he wants to take his show and at to what level. But it would be nice, yeah, to put on some type of a different show and invite, guys like Tyler Mannion or Jim
Yeah.
Mannion to come and see our shows. Yeah, we're looking a little bit of that in the future. But right now, we just want to concentrate on 2021. And I want to add that a lot of things that we've learned through our president, Ron Hashi. He's been promoting a lot of shows for many, many years, and he's our go-to person. We're not that proud that when we run into a dead end, we give him a call, and he usually gives us real good advice. So, we all work together, and that's what makes our shows the shows that they are.
No, you have to.
And if you're not sure who Ron Hashi is, he's the CPA president. For people out there that are new to the sport, he's our Canadian Physique Alliance president, and he pretty much runs a show. He's like the Jim Mannion of Canada.
Yeah, he is.
So, he's an amazing man. I mean, he has so much experience and knowledge, and that's our go-to. And just a shout out to him. And I think that it's important just to explain what the Canadian Physique Alliance is. It is a federation that actually falls under the IFBB Pro League. So I guess the requirement for athletes to go to a higher level would be that they would compete in a regional show, like our 4 shows that we hold per year. And if you place in the top 3, that allows you to qualify at the national level at the pro qualifiers that they hold in Ontario. And they usually hold about 3 pro qualifiers a year, 3 or 4 pro qualifiers.
But also internationally.
And internationally
it's
as
under
well.
the NPC umbrella.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
if you want to spend some money, I mean, obviously with COVID, this is not really in the question, but it's easier to do them in Canada because you're in your realm of travel, but also the organization that you're primarily competing with, like Heather said. But just another thing to add that you can now compete internationally. Sorry.
One thing I want to go back to really quick, talking about taking shows to like another level. Like, what do you think, like the key thing is, like, say, let's use a Flex Lewis show, for example. Like, what do you think would need to be done with that show to make it like a huge major event, like on the amateur bodybuilding scale? Like, is it like the venue, the date? Like, what do you think is the game changer there?
I think it would be a few things. Definitely the venue, but before we go to the venue, we would have to bring in someone who's well known worldwide to at least be present at the show and to put some interest in the show. And we would have to get a major sponsor in order to put on the type of show that Heather and I would like to put on, which is more bells and whistles. And that would be basically it. And if we have that opportunity, if it's offered to us, we're definitely going to take it. But right now, we haven't had that offer. We might not. And if we do, we're going to run with it. Like in 2007, we never thought we'd get offered to put on a show. We did, and now we're putting on 4 shows. So who knows what the future holds?
I think
I got a good feeling it's going to be good.
I think people are afraid for you guys to put on a big budget show because it would just be too good.
The standard would be so high after that.
But I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, Heather and Ti-Jean, their show is so good. It's like I've gone to the States and competed, and I'm like, this is not even close to Heather and Ti-Jean shows. Like the production, but
it's a level of effort. Yeah.
What I want to make clear for people that are listening is that it's not the Ti-Jean and Heather show that's great. It's the people behind the scenes that make it great.
Right.
We have a great team. I mean, from our workers to our techs to people doing our montages to people doing our posters, our judges. Like, we have a great team. It's like we're like a hockey team that gels well together in the locker room. We may not have the best players in the world, but we're such a team that gels together, we're a better team on the ice, if you know what I mean.
Ti-Jean's always in the penalty box when it's game
Yeah.
time, though.
I always said that when I got involved in the sport, that the moment that I have to go back to a high school, the moment that I have to, I guess, scale down.
We don't want to regress, we want to progress.
We don't ever want to go back to when we first started and make it a half-ass show. Like, it's always going to go up or better from what we already have. And if I have to reduce all of these things and eliminate things that I've always done for the last, whatever, 15 years, then I think it's time for me to hang up the promoting shorts there. You know, because I won't settle for less. It has to always be better and better and better. It's never going to be good enough for me. And I will put on the best shows. We will put on the best shows, that we possibly can for the athletes, because it's all about the athletes. It's for the athletes, and it's our passion, and that's why we do it. Bottom line.
Okay. Oh, geez, I just had a question for you and I lost it.
I got a good one.
It's okay.
Okay, you go ahead and I'll try to think of one.
Okay, so I got one here. What kind of bikini cut are we allowed? I'm hearing mixed stuff.
Well, I think that changes with time as well. We had a question yesterday from a bikini girl, so we took it upon ourselves. Like, when we don't know the answer, we're not scared to ask. We sent the photo to Rudy Jambrosi, who is the head judge here, our national head judge, and he told us that that cut was okay, that they're allowing the pro cut now. So
Yeah.
We're allowing the pro cut, just like the pros are allowing the pro cut. So that's basically where we're at. I mean, we started maybe a little stricter. Now things are getting, I think, a little bit more relaxed, because if we're preparing athletes to be pros, they might as well
Dress like a pro.
dress like a pro and act like a pro.
How do you feel about pro cuts, Morgan?
I'm all for the pro cuts. Well, this has been an issue that I identified even from like my early years in bodybuilding, that like the judging at the amateur level didn't match up with the pro level. And you even had people like, for example, would be penalized for like a higher level of conditioning at an amateur level for, say, like a figure class. But then if they had that level of conditioning at the pro level, they would be like a good pro. You know what I mean? So it's like judging criteria like that, and then with the suits and stuff as well. I disagree with you that I think it's good that everything is finally just like the same and like becoming the same. They're not judging it like it's two different sports, right?
Yeah, we are now judging our athletes the same way that we would be judging, or they would be judging the Olympia athletes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when those people's goal is probably to ultimately be a pro, I mean, you're kind of doing them a favor to judge them that way, because at the end of the day,
yeah,
that's the level they're trying to reach.
It asks more from the athlete, because a lot of people, and there's been a bit of a transition in the last. I found that with the CBBF, the quality of the shows were really, really good. Like, you would go to any national show and it would be like 10 people a class, and you're like, whoo, like that. There's a top 5 in these 10 people of all of them. It could be, you just close your eyes and pick. But the judging, like you said, the judging was different. So somebody who was like the top, you look and you'd be like, oh, so-and-so, but they would be like, nah, you're too lean, or you're too this. But now I'm finding
More consistent.
they're like, the judging is harder, but you know, there's not as many overall competitors at every show, because there's a lot more shows and there's a lot more freedom. But it's like every person who's showing up to the show is always pushing themselves harder than it used to be, I find, you know?
Yeah.
All right, I just remember my question. I got to ask it before I forget again. So my question is, do you think social media has affected the purpose of having like seminars and guest posings and stuff like that, where you would like bring athletes in, like you know, that we did like 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago? They were a lot more popular than they seem to be now. And it's not just here. Like, I notice it everywhere. Like you know, because we follow all these athletes on social media now, and like I never hear pro bodybuilders going and doing seminars anymore. Every now and then you see these guys doing a guest posing. And like, what's your guys' opinion on that? Do you think it's just because we have so much access through like social media to these people that like there's no real need to have a seminar anymore, and there's no need to bring them in for guest posing because everyone knows what they look like all the time anyway?
Well, from my experience, and I've only been in the sport for 50 years, so I've seen a lot of transitions during the years. When I was starting out in the 70s and 80s, whenever a guest poser came to a show, it would be a sellout. It didn't matter how big or how small the venue was, because you would only see them on magazines. You would never see these people like on social media. But now with social media, if you want to see Rolly Winkler or anybody, you can just go on social media and see them. So to bring in a guest poser now, financially, it's not it's not an asset. You know, I mean, if you can get a guest poser in there, but you're not bringing him in to make money, because they may sell 50, 60 tickets more. That's not going to pay for the guest poser. But in my day, when the guest poser came, they would sell tickets. So yeah, social media has really hurt that. As far as the seminars goes, I believe that pro seminars might have took a bit of a hit, but like regionally, we have our stage ready seminars, and we have our local pros to come and participate for. Actually,
They're sellouts.
They give out their time for free.
Yeah.
We try to help them out with their expenses, and it's not to make money. It's an investment to give the athletes more knowledge about the sport, and then make them more aware of what to do and who to go and turn to. So we'll have professional bodybuilders or professional bikini girls speak at the seminar. We'll have someone talk about social media, and we'll have people talking about where you can get your suits, your tanning. We cover all those aspects because we're catering to the people in the audience, and probably 75% of them are going to compete in the show soon. So that's our type of seminar. It's not just a knowledge type of seminar for 8 months, a year down the road. It's a knowledge seminar for 6 weeks down the road.
Yeah, like way back, we had brought in so many,
gosh,
Nicole Wilkins and Kai Green and, Sadik Hadzovic and Flex Lewis and Ashley Kaltwazer and Amanda Latona, Dana Lynn Bailey. I mentioned Nicole. And, Natalia Malo, that's another one we brought in. So
Dana Baker.
So and I was that one too.
Those are just like a few, we've brought in others, but I think too that because the sport has taken a little bit of not a regression, but it's kind of taken a little bit step back. Like there's not as many athletes competing in the last few years as there used to be. And there's not as many fans in the audience because of that, right? I think that it comes down to expenses as well, because, we can pay up to between $6,500 and $10,000 US to bring in a speaker for a seminar that's well known in the industry. So, we have to make sure that we can make enough to pay our expenses, right?
Like our accountant once asked us, says, why do you guys keep having seminars when you're losing money? We're not losing money, we're investing money. We're investing in our athletes. Right. We figured the more knowledgeable they're going to be, more knowledge that's out there, they're going to start coming to our shows.
They might actually get in shape.
So that's basically our objective.
So,
question here, couple for the upcoming shows. Backstage passes, can people buy them at the upcoming shows? And judging critiques, how does that work? Can competitors, so what I'm getting from this question is, are people able to get feedback from the judges? Is that something, obviously a lot of us know that answer, but so backstage passes and then critiques from the judges.
Okay. So backstage passes for these upcoming shows are a little trickier this year, and we're not really offering them like we have in the past because of the COVID restrictions and the social distancing. As it is right now for the Capitol, we're using 2 levels, like 2 floors. So we have to only have a certain amount of people backstage and to be able to maintain that social distancing rule. So we have a few coaches that will have passes, but that's because it's included in their sponsorship. But as far as like regular coaches or spouses and friends and family, no,
not this year.
Not this year because of COVID. Maybe at the Flex Lewis Canadian Classic, when things get back to normal, we'll be able to bring back the backstage passes, or even July 24th, maybe we might be able to. But for now, I have to say, don't count on it. But if something changes, definitely.
Yeah, that's something you guys will be making them.
Is Dana going to get a backstage pass? Because I'm going to need it.
No, we don't want him there.
No,
Dana's a distraction.
I'm actually doing glazing for all the bikini classes. I'll be backstage, or I'll be in the tan room.
And me too. Don't forget you got to glaze me, buddy.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glazing you plus all the bikini girls.
So,
I mean,
as far as the judging critiques go, we always try to offer that service, and I'm really going to try hard this year. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have more information on that about the judging critiques, and I'll be able to answer that question a little bit later, leading up to the show. If we offer it, it'll be announced before the show, and the night of registration, you can purchase a judging critique, and it's going to be done professionally, of course, and it would be done by myself or Duncan Lombard, the head judges.
So here's another question, just a little touch on that, because I've heard the feedback from you guys a lot. For what would you recommend to people? Because I know there's a lot of people that they know they have these options, but then they won't go and get the judging critique, but then they'll start DMing and Heather, who's not a judge at the show. They're promoters. That's the other thing too. You guys are not involved with the judging at the shows. Is that correct? Like at the ones that you're promoting?
Actually, this year, because of COVID
Okay.
and because of all that, I will be co-judging with Duncan.
Okay, so then you will be open for critique.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it'll be Duncan's scoring, but I'll be there to
Okay.
help him co-judge. So,
like, you recommend people go through this process, like, because I find
Absolutely.
a lot of people, they know it's there and then they won't go through the actual steps to like get it done properly, but then they'll message so and so.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And you know, I used to do judging critiques. Remember?
We used to do them or
For free.
For free, and it was, I mean, you're looking
It
at
took me months.
You're looking at a half an hour if you want to do a good job. And, you know, like after a while, we just didn't have the time to do it anymore.
Yeah.
No,
It's,
yeah.
uh,
It should be an extra service though. Anyway.
Are you guys gonna cap it so that you have to like get the critique paid for beforehand so that you
yeah,
know?
it has to be paid
Oh, yeah,
for
for
So
sure.
that's another thing too. So
Yeah,
if you're
can't be after the fact.
if you're watching it now and you're
Right.
competing,
Right.
because this is being said here, get in
budget for
get
it.
all your like get your judging critiques, because this is the other thing too. I find there's a lot of competitors out there that they're these two classes, or they're in between, and they're going to a show to try them both out. Like maybe they're doing classic and men's physique, or classic and open bodybuilding, or they're doing wellness and bikini. It really pays, literally, to pay for a judging critique and have them say, okay, this is what we saw. And then you and your coach or whoever you're with can then make a better decision after. Because that's what it's all about. You're paying your money to go to the show. Make sure you get proper feedback. And there's probably shows out there where there's judging critiques where people pay and, oh yeah, you're too big or whatever, right? So
These are really well done, by the way. They're done very professionally. You actually have your whole routine and you coming out on stage and everything. And we are actually doing a voiceover in the background. So it's really well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really well
really?
done. So it's very professional. And you're going to hear me say stuff about your suit, about your walk, about your posing, what you need
Yeah,
to do.
guys, I've seen these, and just like Heather said, it's like literally a video of you posing and then a voiceover of them going through what you're doing and
I didn't actually
talking about anything else that could have changed, like your suit, your hair, your makeup.
We never used to have that at all.
No, we
your
never had
tan,
that.
stuff like that. So yeah.
Rudy for that. Rudy's the one that came
Like,
up
yeah,
with
because
that.
like, and that's the thing too, like a lot of these tools are things like when I started competing in 2012 at the, like my second show was at the Matthew Martin for the 2012. Like these things it's not that they weren't necessarily
available.
there, but it wasn't really a service that
No.
if you were new, you could walk in. And that's the other thing, like the posing seminars are great because you can go there and get another insight. But yeah,
Their critique was just walking by and saying, you look good, just work on this.
Yeah, work on this. And then they go to the show, they said that was not what I was supposed to do.
Anyway.
All
Also,
right, do we got any last final questions, Dana, before we let you fine folks go?
There was another one on drug testing. Do you guys drug test your athletes? Like, how does Morgan pass his?
Yeah, I can.
What are you talking about, dude? I don't even. Come on.
Edit that.
Yeah. I'm 3 weeks out now. I just took creatine out.
So really quickly, because I know you're on short time, and I think Jean wanted to say one more thing about the critiquing, but
Okay, we got 10 minutes. We're good.
All right, so the natural show coming up in Newfoundland and New Brunswick, so on the 17th and the 24th, for example, we do have drug testing that is mandatory for the natural shows, of course. We usually do 4 or 5 tests, drug tests. They can be done just the overalls that would win. It can be done randoms, like, you know, like just taking a number out of the hat, or it can be done by target testing. We don't indicate what it is that we're doing. We test who we feel should be tested, but most generally it's the overall winners. And I will say though, one thing that is a misconception with some people, and this may cause some controversy, but I'm going to say it anyway. At the last natural show in New Brunswick, there was no drug testing, and the reason for that,
2 reasons.
there was 2 reasons. One reason was because of the COVID restrictions and everything going on. And the other thing was, it is not mandatory 100% that at a natural show that we do a drug test. This is like a big pot of money that this extra $50 goes into for the drug test.
There's a fee.
There's a fee.
Okay.
Associated with the drug test. And these fees go into a big pot of money for the entire country. Okay. Every test costs over $500 each. So these are very expensive tests. So you go 500 times 5 tests, that's $2,500 a show that comes out of this pot for these drug tests. It's not always mandatory that it happens that we don't have that particular show drug tested. I would say probably 90% of the time it is, but in certain, I guess, circumstances out of our control, especially like the last one in New Brunswick, because the show was like detoured the day before, and it was very difficult to get that all on board. That is why. So I just wanted to make that clear, because there was something kind of like mentioned about, well, why did we all have to pay that drug test if there was no drug testing done? Well, the reason for that is because it's not about the $50. And that $50 doesn't go to the promoters. That $50 goes to the CPA, goes into a pot to pay for the drug test. So I just want to make that clear.
It's a good thing to point out though, because I didn't even know that. I had no idea.
And the testing is so random. I was there helping backstage. They drug tested me.
But that being said, at the last show, there was no drug testing because we were supposed to have the show Saturday. We had it Friday, and the people that were there supposed to be there for drug testing, they weren't available.
They were coming
on
from
Friday
Fredericton,
night. They were coming.
Yeah, and then
from
Moncton was.
So we just didn't have a drug testing people there.
Yeah, that was what Moncton was going.
That's basically what happened that night.
Either way, for that show, listen, the circumstances, you guys did whatever you had to do. You put it off. If anyone has anything to say about that, they can shove it, because I mean, that was a miracle that even happened, and those athletes just need to let their show happen. And
but just, I just wanted to point out that yes, these 2 shows are going to have 10 drug tests done. It's all been set up, so not to worry. You're going to be.
I picked everybody. I got a list.
Yes, we already know.
Drug test. I got it all written down.
Dana's the head of the drug testing Atlantic Canada community. He's the president.
So join Morgan. I won't put you on the list.
Yeah. Keep me off, would you?
No, I'm not involved in any of the drug testing.
I also want to make a point. Sometimes the judges are sitting at the table, and if they're taking a while to judge a class, it's because the class is very tight. And a lot of times the judges will congregate and talk to one another to make sure that everybody is in agreement with what's going on stage. We don't want no conflict with judges, and we don't want no conflicts with anybody. We try to do the best possible job. Do we get it right every time? Some people will say yes, some people will say no. It's up to you to believe whatever you want to believe. But we try to do our best job. And that's why sometimes that we take our times with classes. That's why sometimes, especially like a tight class, like bikini classes are sometimes very hard to judge. We want to make sure that everybody is judged fairly, because we've seen shows where someone winning that show, I had them in 5th place. And that can happen. I mean,
well, I think that's what you want to see as an athlete. Like, I know if I'm doing a show and the judges are taking their time and I'm if I'm on my 4th or 5th round of posing, I'm like, okay, like they're actually giving us time to see who maybe gets
Well,
better as we
they're
pose or who fades away as we pose, like actually letting us battle it out, because that's part of the sport. Your body can physically change on stage, especially in
just for
classes where you're
examples.
flexing and stuff like that, right? So
I want the audience to know that that's what we're doing. That's
yeah.
why we're taking so much time sometimes.
Yeah, and that should be only encouraged, because either if you're an athlete or a spectator, like if the judges are taking their time, that means like you said, they're putting in the effort to making the best call. If I've been at shows where classes have 10, 15 people in them and they're on stage for 5 minutes and it sucks. And usually the judges still get it right and you understand what they're trying to do, because they probably have, it could be a show with 200 to 500 people, like a national show. And these judges know what they're doing and they can pick the top 5 probably really quickly. And that's good because, you know, at the end of the day, at those high level shows, that's probably what actually matters. But at the same time, you still had 10 other people that showed up and put in the effort to get there. And they do, you know, deserve at least a look and to be, you know, positioned correctly in their placing so that they know where they stand up against their competition, so that they can be motivated to improve and come back and try it again. Right.
And that's just the, like, that's in relation to what we were talking about before about, you know, purchasing a judging critique. And this is the responsibility, like as a coach or as an athlete, a lot of the people coming back from shows, it's a good chance to look back and say, okay, because I've done shows where I've been really happy and surprised with how well I did. And I wish I had have known what the judges commented on, like why, like from what I saw, or maybe a coach. And then there's other shows like where there's the other way, like I thought it looked really good, I didn't really do that well. So that's the other importance too, like if you're a coach, even to recommend your clients get the critiques, so that, because if you're someone who's reactive, because there's a lot of competitors out there who are, I'm one of them, I react. I've been better at keeping it like off social media recently, but if you get that judging critique, all those questions in your head, you know, when you get off stage, like, because even if you come second, it's like, like why? What was the one point? Or, you know, so it's good to have that in the back of your mind so that you can get the proper feedback and then move forward.
Yeah.
100%. All right, guys. Well, I think we'll leave it there. We covered a lot. I just want to say I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I think this is perfect timing with all the shows coming up. Hopefully it gives all these athletes that are competing and other people who are going to be spectating the show some more insight on like where you guys are coming from, like where your mindset is, especially coming out of COVID and everything like that. So it's been crazy times, but like we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It's super exciting. Like we've all been waiting for this for so long. And we all get to see each other in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. Can't wait.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
All right, guys. All the best. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you very much.
See you later, Morgan.
See you.
See you soon.